Hello everybody and welcome back to another My Porch Prints tutorial. This is Kyra and today we are jumping right in with the first video in the Blue and Ivory junk journal series that we're going to be doing on the channel here. And for this one we are going to be starting with our signatures and decorating the edges of the pages. Sorry if you can hear my cat, she is very needy right now and crying in the background. But anyway, yeah, so we're gonna just jump right in here and start with decorating these page edges, and then we'll be doing the rest of the decorating for the edges after we attach them to the journal. So today, let's go ahead and just get started by printing off all of our papers that we're going to be needing. These again are from the Blue and Ivory kit. You can use any journal kit you want. It doesn't have to be the Blue and Ivory kit. That's just what I'm using. And I've got 7 of the decorative papers, and then I've got 10 of the actual journal pages themselves here. And these are just printed on regular paper. We have the details for our paper and our printer down in the description box. And then I'm also adding in 3 of these coffee dyed papers. You can use real ones or you can print some off from our shop. It's up to you entirely. Just so that I have kind of an even 20 pages to work with here. And I do have these journal pages printed on the back. I went ahead and used the stamped edges paper pack. Sorry. I will have all of the kits linked down in the description box again if you are interested. And then with my pretty papers, I accidentally ran them through the printer the wrong way, so I printed the prints like up on top of each other. However, I didn't want to waste paper and I kind of liked how it looked, so I decided to just go ahead and flip them over and print the regular papers on the back and then leave the ones that were kind of doubled up and use them in the journal. I think it's kind of interesting and I don't mind it. Alright, next I'm going to be taking my paper cutter here. This is a swing line paper cutter and it's got a lovely note from my mother who does not trust me with anything sharp. And I'm going to just go ahead and cut off the edges of the paper here. Go ahead and make them usable. Now I know some people ask us why they have white borders on them when they print them. This is just a printer setting. It's just how papers print. We didn't add the edge, it's just kind of there. So yeah, we have to cut them off like everyone else. And if you don't want to throw these away, you can actually keep them and use these edges in other projects. If you run them along like the blade of a scissor, you can kind of get them to curl and maybe use them in like we did them with our Christmas ornaments tutorial. So, you know, you don't have to throw away these scraps, they can be used. Alright, now that the edges are removed, we can go ahead and start assembling our signatures. Now I'm going to be doing 4 signatures of 5 pages each. That's why I wanted the 20 papers. It's a little easier on my brain when working with even numbers. So I'm going to start by taking those coffee dyed papers and creating signatures out of those. And I only have 3, so I'm going to kind of arbitrarily just pick a 4th paper here. And now that I've kind of got the base for my signatures, I'm going to start working on them. And I'm going to try to keep my papers sort of varied. I don't want like all the stripes in the same signature, things like that. So just kind of going through here and building my signatures how I like them. Any order is fine. And then I'm going to use some bulldog clips to help me kind of keep everything organized so my signatures don't get mixed up. And I like to kind of fold mine in half to get an idea of like what they'll look like as I flip through them, just to make sure I'm happy with the order of my pages here, just like this. All right. And when it comes to your signatures, don't worry if sometimes they seem like there's not enough contrast or something. We will be decorating a lot of these pages, so it's okay if things, you know, aren't perfect. You'll be covering some of it up anyway. And another thing to take note of is if you have the coffee dyed papers, they will be a little bit larger because we didn't cut those edges off. So if you want to, you can trim those down and make all your pages the same size if you want. I kind of like the variation, so I'm going to leave mine. And then here you can see that everything's pretty light. If you want a lighter look, you can take like the higher contrast pages and kind of hide them inside the signature, and that'll give your signatures kind of a lighter feel overall. However, I actually like the contrast, so I'm going to kind of flip some of these over. Oh, sorry, my cat is, she's very needy. Anyway, I'm just gonna kind of layer mine so it's kind of light, dark, journal pages, papers, just kind of keep things looking nice and varied throughout the journal. Now, because this tutorial is kind of about showing you different ways of decorating page edges, I did kind of have to think ahead for my own personal journal since I'm using so many different styles. I still wanted it to look cohesive and not just kind of like a big mess. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of pre-planning here to decorate each of the edges. So I know that I've got, 2 edges per each side of my paper here, so I decided to go ahead and kind of divvy things up, starting with the lace. So you can see if I put lace on just like one signature and not the others, it would make my journal look really kind of heavy and uneven in certain areas. So a really good example of like even decorating of page edges would be my Daydream and Green journal here. You can see that I used several different types of lace and beading and things like that, but I kept them evenly spaced out. So even though it's like a mess, it's an organized mess, So for most of the decorating I'm going to do today, I'm going to be like kind of divvying up what I'm doing between each of the signatures. So like I'll do one ribbon on each signature and I'll do, one scrap wrap on each signature, something like that. And that just kind of helps me keep organized. You don't have to be this organized. This is just what I'm doing for my journal, just to help me since I had so much I wanted to show you guys. I needed to keep things very organized here. So this just helps me a little bit. Just a little bit of pre-planning can go a long way with the journal. But of course you can always just pick maybe like one thing that you want to do. So for example, in this journal, I did just torn edges, and you can see there's still a lot of variation here and it still looks nice and clean and kind of, like pretty, just doing the one thing. And of course, if you want to, it's your journal. So if you don't want to think hard about it at all, like with this journal here, I didn't. I just kind of decorated and things sort of built up naturally as I went along. So if you kind of like that very like messy, look, that's very junk journal. I don't think there's any problem with that. So whatever you feel like doing with your journal is perfectly fine. Alright, so to begin, we're going to be starting with something I'm calling scrap wrap, which is exactly what it sounds like. I'm taking old paper scraps, papers that I didn't use from other kits, like this one I think was from the Sepia and Ivory kit, and I'm just going to be finding pieces that I like that I want to use to wrap around the edge of my journal page. So I'm going to kind of look through here and pick ones that I think are pretty. You can use any scraps you like. And I'm going to be doing one in each of my signatures here, and I'm going to kind of try to see like which pages look like they have the highest contrast. I kind of want that like variation here to sort of, spice up the journal and make it look a little more interesting. So once you find a page you like, all you have to do is sort of go ahead and trim off any edges that you have and cut it down to a size that you think is usable. I'm going to go ahead and use this torn edge here, just tear the rest of this piece off, save that scrap for later. We'll be using it when we decorate our journal. And then all I'm going to do is fold my page in half, just grabbing one from one of the signatures here. And then I'm going to fold my scrap in half. And you can cut this down to be as wide or as thin as you like. I'm going to go ahead and just leave this piece rather wide, about covering up half of my page here. And I'm just going to fold it in half and slide it over the edge of the page like this. You can see we've got like a pretty little wrap here that adds some interest to the page. And again, you can tear more pieces off and work with it how you like. And if you want to, you can add glue to just the top and bottom and leave the side open to make like a little tuck space here. Just keep in mind like how much space you actually have between the spine of your journal and your page. So, right here, there's not quite enough space for me to really tuck things in. It's just a little too close to the spine to really fit. So I'm going to just glue this piece down and leave it decoratively. But on this side, I have a little bit more space. So I am going to leave this part open to make like a little tuck spot. So to do that, I'm just taking some Fabri-Tac glue. We use this glue all the time. It is non-water based, so it does not wrinkle, and we love it. It's very strong, quick drying, so we use it in pretty much all of our projects for everything. And I'm just going to glue that one side down like this. And then on the opposite side, I'm just adding glue to the top and bottom portion, leaving the side open, just like so, and cutting off any extra you might have at the top and bottom. And you can go over it with a little bit of distress ink as well if you want to hide any edges. So I'm going to be doing that with this vintage photo distress ink from Tim Holtz, and just kind of really quick cover up any pieces that are showing. And I'm taking just a tag here to show you real fast how this works. In case you've never done it before, you just have a little tuck space here that you can tuck ephemera into, kind of like a little pretty secret extra tuck on your page. And now that that is done, I'm going to go ahead and do that with all of my signatures. So just taking one page from each signature here, and I'm going to be adding some of those scrap edges. Now you can have torn edges or straight edges, or maybe you want to use like a decorative punch. Anything you want is perfectly fine. Go ahead and get as creative as you like. I'm just going to keep it simple for now. Next, we're going to be working with some ribbon. So I have a couple of ribbon here from Merchant 41. We got these at Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to be using these to just decorate a few of my pages in my journal. Nothing crazy here. I'm just going to start with the very front page, and I'm going to kind of work with one page at the very front of each of my signatures and just kind of go every other one with these different ribbons. So this second one will be, you know, the shorter ribbon, and the first one will be the longer ribbon here. You'll kind of see what I mean. So again, just taking Fabri-Tac, going right along the very edge of my page and gluing down some of those ribbon strips here, just like this. And you can see kind of what that'll look like. I like to fold mine in half, and you can see because I only did the right side, that makes the front of the journal look really heavy. So I'm going to match what I did for the longer ribbon on the left side of the page. And that looks pretty good. It's a little more balanced, but I still want to do something on these kind of like blank pages that we have left here. So for that, I'm going to be doing a lace window, since lace is going to kind of play a major theme in my journal. So I'm taking some of this ribbon from Celebrate It. I think this is from Walmart, I want to say. We have quite a lot of this ribbon, so I really wanted to make use of it in this project. So I'm going to be making like a little lace panel here, just taking this first page, kind of matching where we did the other ribbon on the right side here. And I'm going to be cutting a portion from this, so I need to kind of figure out where I want that to be. And for me, since I'm looking at this ribbon, I've got like these pretty little see-through panels in the center of the ribbon, and I wanted to work with that. But you could work with any lace that you have, any ribbon you have, as long as it's somewhat see-through, it should work just fine. So however you want to do it is completely up to you. This is just kind of give you a little tutorial here. So that lace panel is about 1 inch thick, so I know that I want my window to be at least 1 inch wide so that you can see through the lace here. And I could have just marked it on the page, but for some reason measurements, my brain doesn't work very well, so I decided to make a guide that I thought would help me just a little bit more, keep everything even. And if I could redo this, I would have moved it in a little bit more towards the spine. I think I put it a little too close to the edge of the page. I do move it in with the second one, so I'll show you kind of a comparison of what those look like. But all I'm doing is taking this little piece and tracing around it. It is 8 inches by 1 inch, so it's a little bit shorter than my page, just to kind of keep that window effect, giving it a border. And then I'm using an X-Acto knife to just carefully cut that little panel out here, just like this. All right, and once that is removed, you now have a little window in your page, and we can add our lace. So I'm just kind of eyeball where the center panel is and kind of line up the lace to it, just like this. And then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to add some glue just around the border of my window here, just again very carefully. And you can see this is why having a wider edge on that right side would have probably helped a little more too, just so I didn't have to be so careful with everything. But I'm going to glue that down just like this, and then I'm going to trim off any extra lace that is kind of sticking out funny. I decided to go ahead and trim off all of the lace along the longer edge here. I just didn't love how it looked. It didn't seem purposeful enough to me, so I'm going to just trim that away like so. And there you go. Now you've got this pretty kind of lace window panel in your page here. It's got a really neat see-through effect. Now it does make the page a little bit thin, almost like fabric-like, but I never had any problem with it tearing or being ruined as I worked through my journal. So again, a thicker edge might help with that a little bit, but it seemed to hold just fine. So it's really neat. I kind of like it. I haven't seen anything like this done before, so it was just kind of a fun new thing I wanted to try. That's the problem sometimes with doing new things, is you just never know how they're going to turn out. But it seemed okay, so I decided to go ahead and do the same thing with my second page, just using my same stencil, tracing around it, cutting it out. And I did leave the edge a little bit thicker this time, which made the page, I think, a little bit sturdier and also gave me some room for my ribbon, so I didn't have to trim so much of it away. And you can kind of see a comparison here of the thinner versus the thicker edge and kind of what that looks like here. Just gives it a little bit more stability, and this is kind of what the ribbon looks like when it's trimmed versus not trimmed. So you can do whatever you like with whatever you're working with. It's just kind of here to give you a bit of a comparison, a little bit of an idea of how to do a lace window on a page edge. All right, moving on to our next project here. So I'm going to go ahead and again pick one of my signatures and choose one of the pages from it. I'm going to pick one in the back since I've been working a lot in the front. And for this one, we're going to be doing a dog ear with some sewing around the edge. Now you can do sewing without the dog ear, or you can do the dog ear without the sewing. It's entirely up to you. I'm just doing both to try something different here. So we're going to take our corners of our page and just go ahead and fold them up, dog ear them like this, and try to get them even. The stripes on this paper helped, but they don't have to be perfect. It's okay to have a little bit of variation there. And then you're going to glue those corners down, and that's going to help when we move over to the sewing machine. And I'm going to be working with a zigzag stitch here for mine. I just like the way it looks. I think it's a little more visible. Originally, I tried to do a straight stitch and I was struggling with it and it wasn't really showing up. I also do recommend using a darker thread. I switched to kind of like a darkish blue teal colored thread rather than white. It's just easier to see when you are working with your papers here. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of give a little border around the edge of my page here, just kind of trying to keep things as lined up as possible. I am not the best when it comes to sewing, but I am getting better and it is fun. I really like the way it looks. So I'm just sort of following along the shape of my paper, the edge of it. Whenever my foot reached kind of like the edge of a paper, I would turn it and just kind of go along. Actually working with a striped paper might help you because it kind of has a natural guide. If you are kind of working with sewing pages for the first time, it did help a little bit. And you can see here kind of what that looks like. The darker thread definitely has more contrast than the lighter one, and it also just came out a lot better. I was very messy. I cannot sew with the straight stitch to save my life. It was just so difficult for me. I don't know why. It was very crooked. So anyway, I really liked the zigzag stitch turned out a lot better. So that's the one I'm going to be sticking with. Again, you don't have to do this. It's totally optional, but if you do choose to use it, it kind of makes a interesting effect on these pages and gives a little bit more, you know, detail to them. And this kind of works like how if you use like a half page or something like that, it just sort of adds a little bit more, you know, layering to your papers. Got kind of a fun, funky shape. This ended up being one of my favorite ideas I put into the journal. So there's that. All right, now we're going to be moving on to the very last idea for this tutorial today. Again, we will be doing more page edge decorating after we've attached them to our journal in the following tutorials. But today I'm just going to go ahead and take one of my pages from around the center of my signature, kind of layering them like this so I don't lose my place. And I'm going to be tearing the edges, distressing the edges. You've probably seen this before, but there's a couple different ways to do it. So I'm going to be showing you 3 of them today, which includes like a paper shredder and a decal edge cutter, and then, you know, the good old-fashioned just using your hands. So I also have that distress ink again, so I'll be showing you kind of what that looks like just on its own. So to start, you can see this is a piece of paper that I tore with my hand, so it's very uneven, but it has a lot of texture, and I'm going to go over those edges with the distress ink to just bring that texture out a little bit and add a little more contrast between the pages when they lay on top of one another. And then for my second signature, I'm going to grab another paper and use that sort of decal edge shredder here. I'm not exactly sure. I can't remember what the name of this tool is. We do have it linked in our description box if you are interested. And that gives a much more subtle sort of distress to the edges, just a little bit of tear. And again, going over that with distressing to kind of bring it out a little bit more. And then for my third signature, I'm going to be using the decal edge cutter again, just to kind of show you guys what this can do. I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with this cutter. It doesn't cut quite as well towards the end of the page, I've noticed. It just kind of struggles a little bit. I think something to do with the tension, but it still does a pretty decent job, and it is probably the fastest way. If you are doing like a whole journal where you are going to be cutting edges, this isn't a bad investment. And again, if you're using this cutter, it is kind of small, so you have to fold your pages in half to do the longer edge, but you can see it gives you a very nice torn look without so much effort. So again, if you want something kind of quick, a decal edge cutter is not a bad investment. And again, going over it with some distressed ink, I just kind of want to keep things looking similar, and I like the contrast that it gives. Since a lot of these pages are lighter, having a little bit of a dark edge can kind of help with that. So for one of the coffee dyed papers in my final signature, again, just going over it with the distress ink, giving a little bit of contrast. All right, so you can see here our signatures are coming together. We've got plenty of contrast and variation and texture and detail going on just with doing a couple of simple things to each of our page edges. And now we are going to be ready to start putting our actual journal base together in the next tutorial. So hang on to these signatures and keep them around for when we continue our tutorial series on making our blue and ivory journal. Thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate you being here. I hope you got some new ideas, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye!